Welcome to MJM Adventures. If you're new here, I'm Michelle. And if this is your first time joining us, I want to say thank you for watching our video. Please hit the subscribe button so that you can see all of the fun adventures that we go on. And like and share this video because today I'm sharing a personal side of us and our family in honor of Prematurity Awareness. So something that you might not know about us and our family is that we are actually a alumni preemie family. Our youngest son, Mason, was born at only 27 weeks. And that put us on a adventure or journey, whatever title you want to give it, that we never imagined we would have been on. I do get lots of questions about our journey, what helped us, what didn't, what worked, what tips we have. And I have actually been blessed with the opportunity to help many other mommies who have gone through the same journey as us. And so today I wanted to gather all that information together and share it with you so that you can see just what we went through. So some things that I'm going to cover in this video is our NICU experience, some tips for the NICU stay, some breastfeeding tips, and also some tips on how you can help someone who is going through the NICU journey when you feel completely helpless. I'm going to help you with some ideas. November is Prematurity Awareness Month. And until 3 years ago, I didn't even realize that prematurity was as popular as it is. And I don't want to use the word popular as necessarily a good thing, because until I actually went through this journey, I wasn't aware of how often a baby is born prematurely. Our journey began on August 23rd when my water broke prematurely. And I was always under the assumption that when your water breaks, you're in labor. So I was only 26 weeks pregnant at that time, and I was terrified. I didn't think that my baby was going to make it. I was at home alone with my son, because my husband was at work that day, and I needed to go to the hospital that I had not been to yet. We hadn't had our hospital tour. We hadn't had even the sit down as to what our birth plan wanted to be. So I went to the hospital where they did confirm that my water had broke, but that I was not in labor. I was not dilated. I wasn't having contractions. So I was to be on bed rest until the baby came. And that's exactly what I did. I got magnesium shots. I was monitored. I got fluids. I got ultrasounds every couple days. And then on the 9th day, Mason decided that he was ready to come. So I ended up with a cord prolapse and was rushed for an emergency C-section, which I was put out for because it needed to happen quickly. So I think one of the hardest things about his delivery was that I didn't get to see him be born. I have no pictures, no video, none of that from his birth. My husband was not able to be in the room. And it all just happened so quickly that I just was really scared for what the outcome was going to be. So on September 1st, he was born at 8:38 p.m. He weighed exactly 2 pounds and was 14 inches long. And I think that when you think about a baby being that small, that tiny, you just can't fathom exactly how small and tiny that really is until you see it in person. And so in recovery, I did get the PA to come to me, and she told me what his weight was, that he was doing good, and that I could come see him when I was out of recovery. So recovery took a little while. because they couldn't get the morphine machine working. So I finally got out of recovery, and they were able to wheel me into the NICU on my bed, and I was able to see him. And I think that seeing him for the first time, hooked up to all these machines, cords everywhere, was just something that I never thought that I was going to do. Something that just was very difficult to see. I had to put trust in nurses and doctors that I didn't know, and hope and pray that they would be able to save my little boy. And they did. I was fortunate to be at an amazing hospital and have an amazing NICU team that took care of our little boy. But that's not to say that the journey is not difficult. And if you are watching this as someone who is in the NICU right now, going through this, I feel for you. It is one of the hardest things that you will ever do in your life, and I would not wish it upon my worst enemy. When they are born that little, the biggest thing that they push for is for them to sleep, because when they sleep, they are growing, they are resting. When you touch them, when you stimulate them, it wakes them up. It stops that process. And so in the beginning, I could just put my hand on him. They didn't want you to stroke. I couldn't hold him. Not being able to hold your child is very difficult. There wasn't really much that I could do for Mason, which as a mom, that's really hard to fathom. What they told me I could do is heal. My body had just been through a very traumatic experience, having an emergency C-section and being cut open as big as I was. And pump. He needed my breast milk. Breast milk was the best thing for him because formula for a preemie causes its own collection of issues. So I could pump. And that was one thing that I could do that I felt like I was helping him and contributing to him growing and getting better. So I did. And having not even made it to my 3rd trimester yet, that was very difficult. My body was not ready to produce milk. I learned some tricks, some things that helped to get my milk in, to get my supply up. I wanted to stay ahead of what he was getting. Now, in the beginning, he wasn't getting anything. They would put a little drop of my breast milk on a cotton swab and put it in his mouth, but he had umbilical lines that gave him some nutrients in the very beginning. And when he did start on my breast milk, it was 2 mLs. It was extremely small. But eventually I knew he was going to get more. So I needed to pump and produce as much milk as possible. So a couple tricks that helped me was in the hospital, I actually warmed up washcloths and put them on my breast to help with the heat. The heat helps produce some milk. So that helped. I massaged and I pumped one breast at a time. So that way I could focus on that one breast, massaging it, heating it up, getting the blood and milk flowing in there, and that helped me. And I continued to do that. Yes, it took me a lot longer to pump every single session, but pumping one breast at a time, massaging it, focusing on that breast really helped me. And I will have a few other tips for milk production in a bit. So when you are in the NICU, the first thing you do when you go to see the baby is you have to scrub in. And that is hard because all you want to do is get to your baby. You just want to see him. You want an update on how he's doing. But you have to stand there and scrub in first. And that process seemed daunting each time that you had to do it, but it was necessary so that you didn't bring the germs in and possibly infect him with anything. Having Mason in September, right before RSV season started, was very difficult. It meant that my other son, who actually celebrated his birthday in September as well, could only see his brother for a short period of time, and then he was no longer allowed in the NICU. And that was hard for him because he wanted to see his baby brother. He didn't understand why Mason had to stay at the hospital. If you have other kids at home when you are going through the NICU journey, it is very, very difficult because part of you wants to be at the hospital with your baby. The other part of you wants to be at home with your other child. And so it was very hard to split my time because I couldn't be in both places at once. And I had to share where I was at. And as a mom, you don't want to have to make that choice. Which child do you want to stay with? Which child do you want to be spending time with at that moment? Because it hurts your heart to not be able to spend time with both of them at that time. The NICU is not all bad. At least for us, there were many, many goods. There was celebrations that we got to make with Mason as he grew and as he got stronger. And there were people that we met that will change our lives forever. They will continue to be family for the rest of our lives. We cannot repay the NICU nurses and staff for what they did for us, for their kindness, for the way that they loved our little Mason and took care of him like they were taking care of their own child or grandchild. And that kind of love doesn't go unnoticed. And I will forever cherish the people that I met along this journey, including other NICU moms that I now consider friends and get to follow their little ones as they grow and they thrive. Mason is doing amazing now at 3 years old. He is thriving. You can see on our adventure channel all of the things that this little boy gets to do. And it is amazing because I never expected him to do as good as he is doing and to not have the delays. And I'm not saying that people who are born prematurely won't have delays, because many of them do. But we are one of the ones that are blessed that he doesn't have those. You look at him and you would not know that he was born prematurely. And that is amazing. I can't thank God enough for our miracle for both my boys. For as amazing as Jaden was throughout the whole process, although it was difficult for him to understand. He was only 4 and just wanted to hold his baby brother. He was excited, and that had to be put off for a little bit. So one thing that I am so glad that we did is I got a Carter's stuffed animal. Actually, Jaden picked it out while I was pregnant, and that was what he was going to give his baby brother in the hospital. And so we had that, and we didn't know what we were going to do with it at first, but I knew I wanted to do something with it with pictures. So at 1 week old, I decided I would take a picture of Mason with the stuffed animal so that you could see just how tiny he was. And everyone loved it. Everyone that could not see him was able to sort of understand just how small he was based on that stuffed animal. So we continued to do that every week. We took a picture of him with his stuffed animal. And I am so glad that we did that, because I was able to see his growth just by looking at those pictures. And I shared them on social media so our family and friends could see his growth. And it was amazing to look back at those pictures and see where he was from the first week to his first birthday. And we even took pictures of him at 18 months as well with that little stuffed animal. So if there's one tip that I can give anyone who is going through the NICU journey, is get a stuffed animal and take pictures as often as you can. If for some reason it can't be weekly, take them monthly. Take them as often as you can so you can see the growth. And that is something that you will cherish, I promise you. Okay. Another tip that I have is have a little notebook to just in your bag to take notes. Take notes on what the doctors say, or what the nurse gives you for an update on what the baby's weight is, anything like that. I didn't do that as much as I would have liked. And so when I look back, I don't know all of the information from his NICU journey, because it is very overwhelming. You get a lot of information each day and you just can't remember it all. So having a little notebook to keep track of that is something that I recommend. Another thing that I recommend, if you are able to, is have a small camera that you can label and leave at the hospital for the nurses to take pictures when you're not there. It was something that we had the opportunity to do, and the camera was labeled with a sticker with his information, and there was a note that was left that the nurses had permission to use the camera to take pictures of him when we weren't there, so that there was things that they did that they were able to document for us. And I loved that. I loved that we had that opportunity, and I loved that I had nurses that were willing to do that. And I do have a handful of pictures from them because they did that for me. And so I'm appreciative of that. Another thing that we did is we got the swaddle blankets. And we use them for kangaroo care. When I would kangaroo Mason, I had that swaddle blanket over me. And then after we were done kangarooing, the nurse would take that blanket and they would wrap it up and either lay it in the isolette next to him or lay it underneath him. So he had my scent then when I had to leave. And so I was really glad that we were able to do that. So that is something that I recommend getting. And if you are trying to help a NICU mom out and you want to know some things that you could get, the stuffed animal, like I was talking about, is a great start. Carter's has the perfect size little stuffed animal. And the swaddle blankets that we had were also from Carter's. They have so many cute patterns. And they really come in handy after the NICU as well. If you're breastfeeding, you can have that as a cover. It can go over the stroller, just a lot of different uses for it. So I recommend having a handful of the swaddle blankets as well. So I actually had a really hard time talking about our NICU journey. It took me a really long time to open up about it, be able to talk about it without just bawling my eyes out. If you are going through this journey, if you are just home from the hospital, if you know someone that's going through this, it's something that it's hard to explain exactly what you are feeling and exactly what you are experiencing and what the baby is going through. And you don't want to push people away because you already feel lonely that you are going through this, and you don't think that people will understand. I understand. And there are many other moms out there that understand because they have gone through this as well. So reach out to people. If you are in the NICU right now, there are groups on Facebook that you can search and join. And I'll put links in the description below for some of the ones that I recommend being part of, that I'm part of and have been part of since our journey began. If you know someone that is going through this, send them messages. I had friends and family that sent me messages every day. And while I could not respond to them every single day, it meant a lot to know that they were thinking about me, that they were sending me prayers, that they were thinking about Mason. And so don't feel bad that you can't respond to everybody, and just know that if you are sending us messages, we are reading them and we do appreciate them, and we want them to keep coming even if we don't respond to you. One thing that really helped me after leaving the hospital was helping other people. Having gone through the NICU journey myself, I felt like I could open up to other moms because they understood. And if I could help other moms, then that helped me to heal. So whenever you are ready to talk about your story, I recommend talking to other moms, helping other moms that are going through the journey after you have gone through it will help you heal. We are 3 years out, and I still get choked up and emotional about our journey, about what we went through. And the more I talk about it with other people who have been through it and that understand, the more that I don't feel so isolated and alone, because prematurity is a lot bigger than I thought it was. 3 years ago, I didn't know that there was Prematurity Awareness Month or Prematurity Awareness Day. I didn't realize that prematurity was such a big thing. And when my water broke at 26 weeks, I didn't think I was going to be bringing my baby home from the hospital. But thanks to the amazing staff at my NICU, I was able to do that. There is one day that will always, always be embedded in my brain that I will never forget. When Mason was about 8 weeks old, he was doing some final tests to be able to come home that, I think that next week or within the next few days. So we were having pictures taken, and I wanted pictures of me breastfeeding because it was something that I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do. I knew I was pumping and I knew I was providing him that breast milk, but I didn't know if he would actually latch on and breastfeed. And so when he did, that was something that I wanted to celebrate, and I wanted pictures of that to remember that difficulty and that journey. And during that breastfeeding session, after the pictures had stopped, Mason stopped breathing. And that by far was the scariest day for me of our entire NICU journey, because he had to be resuscitated to be brought back to us. And if I ever in my life felt so helpless, it was in that moment. When I stood there and I watched a nurse, a PA, a respiratory therapist, and a doctor trying to revive him, and I could not do anything. As his mom, that was probably one of the hardest moments of my life, until one of the most amazing nurses turned to me and said, "Do you hear him crying?" No, I couldn't, because I was crying myself. So he made it. And that is something that scarred me, especially as I continued to breastfeed him until he was 18 months old. It's something that I thought about daily. And when they talk about PTSD from the NICU, it's real. And if you are feeling it after you leave the NICU, you are not alone. It is real. When you have to wash your hands, you think about the NICU. Just the smell of soap or hand sanitizer, you think about the NICU. When you see any kind of doctor or hospital scene on TV, you think about the NICU. And every time I breastfed, I thought about the NICU and that day. And it's something I think I will always remember. I don't think about it as much anymore, thank goodness, because I don't think I could handle that. But even though the NICU was hard and it was a roller coaster ride of emotions every day, up and down, I never realized I would miss the NICU as much as I did. They became family. I talked to them each day. I shared stories. I learned about them. They cared for my little baby like their own. And I feel like a part of me was getting left behind at the hospital when we walked out the doors that day. We did come home on a heart monitor. So that did give us a little bit of reassurance, because even though he wasn't connected to all the machines he was connected to in the NICU anymore, that told us if he was having any problems, he did have the heart monitor, which was a blessing, because if he was having any heart issues or he stopped breathing, especially when he was breastfeeding or anything like that, we were alerted to that. He was on that until right before he was 9 months old, and now has absolutely no issues in regards to his heart, which is awesome. So you feel isolated when you come home, because especially during RSV season, because you can't take him anywhere. You don't want him exposed to anything. So not only do you not really go anywhere, but you don't have people over. Like when a new baby is born and family and friends all come to visit because they want to come and see the new baby, it doesn't happen when you have a preemie. And that's mainly because you don't want them to get sick. You don't want them to end up back in the hospital. Because once you walk out those doors, you don't want to have to go back. But at the same time, when you miss the NICU so much, you sort of want to go back because you want to see those people. And you also want to show how good your baby is doing and how much he's thriving. And we've gone back many times. And this is where we get to a part of the video that I talk about what has been a blessing for me and why I feel like I was put on this NICU path to help other people. Right at the very end of our NICU stay, I met a mom who had twin girls, and we actually found out that we had a lot of mutual friends in the process. And I was able to share our journey with her and talk to her about some things and put together a care package of some things for her that I thought would help her, that she was just starting her NICU journey. And that sparked something moving forward that we continued to do. I have an amazing group of friends and family who have helped me with my pursuit to help other NICU moms. We have done so many things in the last 3 years that we have donated back to the NICU and the moms that are in the NICU at that time. We actually purchased a whole bunch of those Carter stuffed animals and donated them before Christmas one year. We have donated a lot of preemie clothes, because years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of preemie stuff. You couldn't just go into the store and find preemie clothes. You had to order it online and pay a lot of money, sometimes more money than you'd pay in the store for a bigger outfit for this teeny tiny little outfit. Didn't make any sense. So we did collections of preemie clothes and swaddle blankets, and we're able to donate those. And one big thing that is near and dear to my heart that we will continue to do for as long as we are able to is our Mother's Day NICU thermal bags that we donate. We get 31 gifts, thermal totes, and fill them with a whole bunch of goodies. So I'm about to fill the thermal bags, and I just want to show what goes into them. We have snacks. We add lots of tea, coffee packets. Oh, just made a mess. Tissues, children's books for when you can't hold the baby and all you can do is read to them. Lens wipes for cleaning your phone, which has lots of germs. Ice packs, nail files, chapstick, this amazing lotion, Gatorade drink. We've got pens and notebooks, some yummy chocolate,
hand sanitizing wipes. They're super convenient to throw in a purse or bag. You don't have to worry about them opening up. Some more yummy snacks to throw in a bag or your thermal tote when you're making trips to the NICU and just need something to snack on. Gum. And then 27 of these really awesome thermal totes that I am about to fill.
When you are breastfeeding and you're transporting your milk back and forth to the hospital, you need something to put it in, and you need an ice pack to keep the milk cold on the way to the hospital. So that was one of the things that triggered these thermal tote bags that we do. And we have done it every year since Mason came home. And I am so blessed and so thankful for our family that supports us and helps us to continue to do that. We donate 27 bags each Mother's Day in honor of our 27 weeker. And maybe someday that'll grow bigger. But we like that number because of what it represents and what it means for us. And so when we got a little bit of extra money this past Mother's Day, we actually went and got 27 $10 Walmart gift cards for anything, for food, for gas, for clothes, anything that they wanted to put it towards. That helped. And we're hoping that every year we can go bigger and bigger and be able to get them maybe Uber gift cards for the people that have a C-section and they're not able to drive for weeks. It would give them the opportunity to get to the hospital to see their baby when they're not able to drive or they don't have somebody to drive them there. So we're hoping that that is something that we can continue to do. And if you are looking to bless a mommy, go for it. Get a thermal, get an ice pack, and fill it with whatever you can that you think will brighten their day. Anything is going to be better than nothing. So the next thing that I want to talk about is breastfeeding. And when you have a baby in the NICU, most likely you are not going to be able to breastfeed them right away, especially someone that is born prematurely, like micro preemie at 27, 28, even 30 weeks, because they have not mastered the suck, swallow, breathe. And so they need to get fed through a tube, usually an NG tube that goes through their nose. And the breast milk gets put into that tube that gets pushed down into the belly for them. When you're able to breastfeed, it's a scary process to transition from pumping to breastfeeding. And that is something that hopefully the nurses or the lactation consultants in the hospital will help you with, like they did for me. So some things that I learned along the way with breastfeeding is I actually made sure that I pumped at the same time that Mason was eating in the NICU. So I stayed on his schedule so that I knew when it was time for me to actually be able to breastfeed him, my body was already adjusted to his current schedule. So that really helped. I set alarms, multiple alarms throughout the night, because nobody wants to get up to a pump when they would normally get up to a baby crying. So I would pump one breast at a time. I massaged that breast. I make sure that I heated it up, and I pumped for at least 20 minutes on each side. When my supply wasn't that great because of stress, and let's just face it, you're not eating right, you're not drinking right, you're not getting the right amount of nutrients to produce enough, a lot of mommies give up. I want to give you a couple tips that helped me to be able to keep my supply where it needed to be for Mason. One thing was flaxseed. I made a brownie mix, just a regular store-bought brownie mix, and I put a whole bunch of flaxseed in it. I think I would do like 5 spoonfuls of flaxseed. You can't taste it, but then I would eat 1 or 2 brownies a day, depending on my supply. If I felt like I was doing good, I would just stick with that. If I felt like I needed a little bit more, I might throw another brownie in there. And who doesn't love chocolate brownies? Come on, that's awesome. So if that helped my supply, fantastic. Another thing that I wasn't a huge fan of, but when I felt like I needed to, was non-alcoholic beer. And again, these are my tips. These are not coming from a doctor. These are just something that works for me, or did work for me. Everybody's bodies are different, so something might not work for you. I do know that the flaxseed has been something that has helped for been a help for many other people that I know. So that is something that I recommend. I'm not a big beer fan, so I didn't really like to do that. And then that's when I found out about the flaxseed, and I'm glad that I did that instead. Okay. Having a pumping station at night, having a spot where I could go and sit and have all of my pumping stuff there for me. I also made sure that I had something to drink and some snacks and something maybe to do. Like that's when I would write out thank you cards maybe, or I would definitely call the hospital and check on him. So I had a notepad, and that's when I would write down what his weight was and some different things like that. So having like a little pumping station set up where you could have all that stuff organized in there was really great. If you are going to be pumping in the car at all, looking into a cord for your pump in the car. Now I use the Spectra 2, and I really, really loved that pump. With my first son, I used the Medela, and it was great for him, but it wasn't something that worked as good to get the breast milk out when I was just exclusively pumping. So I really like the Spectra 2 that I had, and I would recommend that pump if you are having to exclusively pump for your baby. That was a great pump, and I would use it again if I was to have another kid. Another thing that I did like to do is bring a blanket home from the hospital that had Mason's scent on it, or look at pictures of him. I would, when I was at the hospital, I would either put my hand on him in the isolette while I was pumping, or there was a few times that I actually had him on my chest, and I would pump the one breast, and then I would switch to the other breast. And believe it or not, I got used to get so much milk pumped out when I was holding him. Just that, I guess, stimulation of him being on me, the way that it made me feel, or you know, I'm not really sure the science behind it, but I did get more milk when I would hold him or put my hand on him. So that's another thing that you can do if you are struggling for milk. Like I said before, prematurity is a lot more popular than I ever thought it was going to be. If you have made it this far in the video, thank you for your support. Thank you for watching. If you are a person who personally knows me and was part of our NICU journey, just know that you will forever have a place in my heart, whatever part you played in that NICU journey. Being in the NICU changes you. It changes you as a person. It changes you as a mom, as a friend. And moving forward, I just hope that I can continue to help as many people as possible. So if you know someone who is going through the NICU journey, share this video. Save this video, bookmark it, so if you ever know of someone in the future that's going through it, you can share this with them. If you are currently going through the NICU journey, put a comment in down below. I'd love to hear your story. If you don't want to put it public, send me an email, share with me. I love to give back. Giving back is something that I think I've always had a heart for. I love to do for others. It makes me feel good when I do for other people. And so I want to continue to give back. And I want to always be a blessing for other moms who are going through this journey. And just want you to know that you are not alone. And there are other mommies out there that will support you and will give you advice and help you any way that they can. And here is our Mason. Here's our miracle. You wave hi? Yeah. As you can see, he is doing amazing. And we are so blessed, and we cannot thank everyone enough who has been part of this journey. And as you can see in our YouTube channel, he does amazing things. He is so adventurous. He rides four-wheelers, scooters, plays with his big brother, basically does everything his big brother does. And I don't know where we would be without him. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Share it. Yeah. And if I left out any tips, anything that you could think of, because, well, I could talk for hours about the NICU and everything that we went through. So if I left anything out, that you think is important, put it in the comments below for other mommies to read. And I think that's it. Say bye.
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 Please subscribe to our channel.
Channel.
Yeah, to our adventure channel.
Yeah, what's the channel?
Yay.